today I'm joined by a very special guest, a former Gamecock women's basketball player and pioneer entrepreneur, Markeshia Grant. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Olivia. When I left University of Texas, South Carolina was my last visit. And I don't know if you noticed, Coach Staley always tries to get the last visit, to seal the deal.
Right.
On my visit, she did not talk about basketball. We went over to her house, we had a barbecue. So I think that kind of like sold me like,
oh yeah,
she's just a laid back coach, on a personal level. So that's the reason why I went to South Carolina.
You were on the 2017 staff.
I was on the 2017 staff.
That's awesome.
So I was a part of the first national championship. And it was kind of one of those surreal moments, like full circle, right?
Definitely.
So the reason I came to South Carolina is because I wanted to be the foundation to help South Carolina win their first national championship. And then I ended up being on the staff to win the first national championship.
Yeah, that's definitely full circle. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Coop. I'm your host, Olivia Thompson. I am super excited to be starting this journey with you guys. Feels like a long time coming, and I'm super excited to see this vision come off the ground. The purpose of this podcast is to highlight the behind-the-scenes people at this university who you might not see a lot, but have huge, impactful roles, who I also have personal connections with, and I want to share it with you guys. Welcome. It's going to be a great time, and I'm very excited to get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Coop, the show that celebrates the past and present sung and unsung legends of USC athletics. I'm your host, Olivia Thompson, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, a former Gamecock women's basketball player and pioneer entrepreneur, Markeshia Grant. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Olivia.
Yes, I'm very happy to have you here. Yes, I'm very excited to talk to you today. We're going to get into some good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. So you just recently spoke at the event Creating Lanes, which is like a platform for women who are carving their own paths as entrepreneurs, that's really cool. What was that like?
It was really cool. So Deja Green, she's a former track athlete, and so her focus is wellness. So you know that I do a lot of personal development, and so I think we aligned in that regard. And so she asked me to come speak on a panel about creating lanes. And so I just talked about my journey and how I got into personal development and team building. And so it was a great experience. I was on the panel with Autumn Johnson, who's also a journalist for women's basketball. So we are excited about, how that's going to look in the future. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, and you've had a pretty unconventional journey, starting from the beginning when you started playing basketball. But I mean, with your business savvy skills, that kind of got hindered. Well, your career in career development got hindered a little bit because of COVID. Talk to me about how you got started in that path and where you started to get you to savvy skills.
So back in 2019, I worked for a nonprofit in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so, COVID happened in 2020, and so we went remote. Everybody went remote. And so we ended up getting furloughed. And so my mom was like, essentially, you've been talking about starting a business, so why not? This is the perfect time to start a business. So, I cried. I was so sad, because I thought it was my dream job.
Right.
And then I realized, a lot of student athletes weren't prepared for that transition. We've never experienced a pandemic. We've never been prepared for a pandemic. And so I just created a platform and resources to help with that transition if it were to ever occur again. But also just teaching life skills through sports. And I think, as you know, we learn a lot of being part of a team, being coached well by great leaders, and just, the understanding what culture means. And so I just put that into a curriculum and created a business.
Yeah. That's a perfect business for a student athlete to transition into, because a lot of the time student athletes struggle. You kind of have an identity crisis once you're out of that sport. I mean, coming from the University of South Carolina, we tend to create pros. Even if they don't go to the WNBA, they're either going overseas. And then it's like there's only some that are not pursuing basketball at post-college. Right. But for the most of universities or student athletes, it's it's not a direct pipeline to the
Exactly.
WNBA. You know what I mean? So you've been dedicating your whole entire life to this sport, and then it's just taken away.
Right.
And it's very jarring, and it can definitely lead to an identity crisis. So that's really commendable that you're doing that.
Thank you. And I just want to say, like, to what you're saying, like that transition. I'm gonna say it here. I'm writing a book about like transitioning and what that looks like and how you feel, what you're experiencing through that transition. I think all of the skills that we learn, like, again, being a part of a team will help you with that transition.
Absolutely.
And then also if we take the part of like, not making the sport our identity and just, it's a part of who we are. And just understanding that, I think, that transition will be a little easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When do you predict your book coming out?
So I'm going to say 2025.
Okay.
I've been working on it. It's called The Space in Between.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
just think about the space in between you being the athlete in college and then you becoming like a professional.
That's
what
awesome.
that looks like.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I'm definitely going to have to read that because, I mean, it's hard. Like, post-grad, you're just kind of in limbo a little bit, and that's the case for everybody. It's rare that you immediately jump into your professional career, no matter whether it be sports or just entrepreneurship, whatever business. There's that gap in between. So it's good. That'll be good for a lot of people.
Yes.
I'll definitely have to check that out.
And I'll make sure you get a copy.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Before we talk more about your professional career, I want to take it all the way back to the beginning because, like I said before, you had a pretty unconventional journey as far as basketball goes. I read that you actually didn't start playing basketball until you were like 10 or 12.
10.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, I mean, for a lot of people, like, it's kind of a late start.
That is a late start.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also read that you were a cheerleader before you started playing basketball.
Yes.
So talk to me about your journey getting into basketball and just the unconventionalist of it.
Absolutely. So I would say, like, I always felt that I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. I just didn't know what that looked like, of course, because I was young. But I cheered, and so that was the beginning of like introduction to sport. And then one day, a guy named Greg Carrington, he's still my neighbor.
Really?
From my hometown.
You still talk to him?
I still talk to him.
That's
I still
awesome.
see him. He's 70 years old now.
Really?
But essentially, he was a basketball coach, and he asked me to come over one day. His daughters played basketball, and he asked me to shoot the basketball, and I was like, this is a boy sport. Like,
right. I'm a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader. Like, what do you want me to do?
I'm a cheerleader. This is a boy sport. And so I shot my first shot and I made it.
Yeah,
and so for me, it was kind of like a validation, like basketball is going to be a part of your journey. And what that looks like, I had no idea
know,
then.
but it was like an instant knowing.
It was an instant, like confirmation for me. And so with that, we played 3-on-3 basketball. So I don't know if you are familiar with like Hoop It Up.
I'm not.
It was a huge tournament that went all across the country. It was in Orlando, Florida. It was in California. And so essentially you would play people you have never played against. And I feel like that was like you getting to understand how to play basketball. And so that was a great introduction to basketball for me. And then as a 7th grader, I ended up playing on a senior travel basketball team.
Okay. That's
so I was the only young kid playing on a high school team. We went to the Deep South.
Okay.
Remember the Deep South?
Oh, yeah.
And, I played in my first game. I got my first 3, and I was like, I could do this.
Right.
I'm made for this.
That's even more confirmation being the youngest person on the team. You're like, okay, like I could really do something here. Yeah.
And that's when, like, I realized, like, my favorite player was Elena Beard. She played at Duke University.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to be just like Elena. And so fast forward, I ended up playing a freshman year at a school called Plant High School in Tampa, Florida. And so I remember the head coach coming to like my middle school game saying like, I know you could come play for me now. Like you can be my starting point guard. And so we made it to the regional finals as a freshman. I started as a freshman point guard. And then I ended up moving to Tallahassee, Florida. My family moved to Tallahassee. My sister went to Florida State.
Was that move because of basketball?
It wasn't because of basketball.
Okay.
It was because my sister ended up going to Florida State. So the whole family wanted to move and, support her.
Yeah.
And so when I got to Tallahassee, I was not accepting of it because I had built,
such a good foundation
in Tampa. But when I got to Florida High, I gave it a chance. We ended up winning 2 back-to-back state championships, and I felt like that's where I became a champion. I understood what it meant to become a champion. And as a young point guard, you're thrown into the fire and you're learning. I had a lot of seniors and juniors on my team, and so like leading a team of that caliber was,
it's a
great.
lot. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's great. Like it feels
a
good.
lot. And one of the championships, I had the flu. So
Are you serious? You had a flu game.
I had a flu game,
and you all ended up winning.
Yes, we ended up winning.
How did you end up doing that game?
I did well.
Yeah.
And I was shocked because I was sick. I was so sick.
The flu is no joke.
And so the first championship we won by 1. The second one we won by 2.
That's awesome.
So that was a cool experience. And with that, so like I said, basketball was like my saving grace. And, not a lot of people know, but I grew up in a single parent home. So basketball was that, like, filling that void. And so in high school, I focused on basketball because I felt like that was like a place for me to like let all the things that I was experiencing out. And I felt like, again, it was my saving grace. And so it wasn't that I wasn't smart. It wasn't that, I couldn't do the work. I just didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't focus on school.
It wasn't your focus. It wasn't your priorities.
So I ended up going to junior college.
Yep, I read Central Florida. Was it Central Florida? College of Central Florida?
So when I went, it was Central Florida Community College.
Okay.
And so now it's College of Central Florida.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your experience there, because I mean, as an athlete, you have these high ambitions. Like you realized early on in your career that you could really take basketball far, and of course the goal is D1. But you kind of had to ground yourself a little bit. Life kind of grounded you at the same time, taking the JUCO route, which is unconventional. And I mean, that's like takes some real mental toughness to do that. Tell me about your experience with that.
So like I said, basketball was my focus in high school. So I ended up going to the College of Central Florida. I played for a coach her name was Cheryl Rice. And so when I got to the College of Central Florida, discipline was her first thing. And you know how it is with Coach. She was always about discipline. But I'll get to that, how that aligns. So when I got to the College of Central Florida, I became a student. I had a 4.0. I was all about school, but then it like elevated my game too. And so just by the time I graduated, I was an All-American. I was a 3-point specialist. Like I was on all of, All-American teams. So I just saw my growth in that transition. And I'm grateful for that transition because I felt like it set a foundation for that transition to D1.
Absolutely. Do you have any anecdotes from your time there that kind of stick out in particular to you? Those were like some pretty formative years for you.
So one thing is like Coach Staley and Boyer had never seen me play. So they wanted to know at the time who was the best point guard in the state of Florida. And so there was a coach, her name was Rooney Scoville. She's actually from South Carolina.
Okay.
And she went to a school in Greenville. I'm not sure of the exact name. But they called Rooney Scoville and she said Markeshia Grant was the best point guard. And I wasn't even on her team. Like she had the best team.
That's
her team won the national championship. And so she told them about me. And still to this day, like I owe all of my success to her because I'm like I would have never been at South Carolina if it wasn't for her.
It's crazy how the cards can fall.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. But in that, when I graduated, I had 3 options of schools that I could go to. So it was the University of Miami, the University of Texas, and the University of South Carolina.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I read too that Gail Geston, what was her last name?
Gestencourt?
Yes, that she was like, she's who you wanted to play for since a child. And I mean, that's your dream school offering you to come play for them. That's amazing. But then you also have Coach Dawn Staley.
Yes.
That's a tough decision.
Yes.
That puts you in a bit of a pickle.
It did.
What kind of altered your decision making and to send you to the direction to commit to South Carolina and Coach Staley?
So One thing is I went on my visit to University of Miami, and I felt like it wasn't a good fit because, again, like I said, I had discipline in junior college, so I was like, I want to look for another space that offers that same, option. And so that was not a good fit for me. And then when I went to the University of Texas, I only seen Gail Gestencourt one time on the visit.
Yeah.
And so
that can be a little off-putting.
Yeah, a little bit. And, I owe it to Mickey DeMoss. So she was the assistant coach there at the time. And she was hosting. And so, I built a great relationship with her. But at the same time, I was like, I'll be playing for the head coach and not the assistant coaches.
Exactly.
So that was a kind of like, off-putting situation. And so when I left University of Texas, South Carolina was my last visit. And I don't know if you noticed, Coach Staley always tries to get the last visit.
Yes. Oh, of course.
She always tries to get the last visit to seal the deal.
Right.
On my visit, she did not talk about basketball.
That's amazing.
And so you probably can speak to this a little bit. But, we went over to her house. We had a barbecue. I played spades with her, and she was my partner. So I think that kind of like sold me like,
oh yeah, she's
just a laid back coach.
Yes,
she's extremely. Really about you as on a personal level. So that's the reason why I went to South Carolina. Like I was ready for the rebuild. I knew she was going into year 5. She had a big time recruit at the time that was already there, and I wanted to be a part of the foundation. And I knew that one day we would be national champions. I didn't think necessarily it'd be our class, but I wanted to help build that future.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I still remember the first time that we went over to Coach's house. I think it was for the 4th of July. And it was just, you're nervous. You're a freshman. You're like going over to Coach's house. You kind of feel like you got to be on your P's and Q's. And you do,
Yeah.
But you get over there and she's just like, flipping burgers on the grill, like got her toes all out. She's just chilling, and she encourages that from us too. So it's like she's just a player's coach through and through. I mean, just immediately setting the table of like, look, like this is a family. You can come to me for anything. Like it's just creating that comfort is so important, especially with the young people she has coming in, like the freshmen. They feel that pressure a little bit. And for you, I mean, you were still you were fresh to this team, so you're kind of testing the waters a little bit, and she just welcomes you with open arms.
Absolutely,
it's a special thing.
And I'm sure you could say this too, like you have a friend for life.
Oh, for sure, you go to her for anything.
From the player to a friend. So
yes.
That was another reason why.
Absolutely. I mean, she's the kind of person you can go to for anything. I really don't. To be honest, like I love having a relationship with her, and it's like I don't ask her for a whole lot, but you can.
Yes,
and that
I'm
comfort,
the same way. I'm the exact same way.
Like she's gonna be there, and it's very nice to have a relationship like that. Yeah. So then you get to South Carolina. Tell me about your experience your first year as D1. What was that transition like from JUCO to making it to D1?
Yeah, so again, I owe all my foundation to Cheryl Rice at the College of Central Florida to help me with that transition because if I didn't have that transition, I'm not saying I'm not resilient and I'm not, I don't have adaptability skills, but I just feel like it was an easier transition going from junior college to D1. And of course, it was challenging because you got to learn a new system. You got new teammates. You got a full schedule of going to tutoring. You're going to classes. You got to go to the Doty. And, bigger classes, right? Because in junior college, they're not as big.
Huge lectures.
Huge lecture classes.
And you better go. Because there's going to be a class checker.
Absolutely. But I was one of those students one of those players that I didn't try to get in trouble. Like I tried to make sure I did what I had to do.
That was much appreciated.
Yes. But yeah, so I feel like it was challenging the first part of the non-conference. But then the second half, I starting. So I felt like, it was a process. With anything, it's going to be a process. We had a challenging season, but I felt like we made strides and knew that going into my senior season, we were going to be a better team. So going into my senior season after that first year, which we went to postseason. We went to the NIT.
Yep.
We didn't go to the NCAA tournament. We went to the NIT, and so that was the first time Coach has went to the postseason at South Carolina, and that just laid the foundation for what came. Right,
because she was still relatively new. She joined the team in 2008, and you came in 2010, right?
I came in 10.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, 2 years into your career and you're at the WNIT. That's pretty special, and you were on a very foundational team for them. I mean, very up and coming.
Exactly.
So talk about that transition going into your senior year.
Going into senior year, I went to point guard college.
Okay.
I
really? I did point guard college two or three times in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a counselor or were you?
So I went as a student.
Nice.
Because I felt like you're going to learn a lot from Coach, but I felt like I needed to think the game better. I was a great scorer. I was a great point guard, but I wanted to be better for what team we were going to have that senior season. So I went to point guard college, but I also had to do those. You remember the summer workouts we had to turn in?
Do I? Yeah.
So
turn in. Wait, I don't think I'm familiar with that.
So we had summer workouts we had to do each week, and we had to turn them in to Boyer at the end of each week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for instance, we had to make maybe 50 free throws.
Okay.
Or we had to do the full court layup drill. I don't know if you remember that?
I am familiar.
Yeah, full court layup drill.
Yes.
So we had to do all of that, right? And I still was at point guard college for a week.
Gotcha.
So with that being said, I was ready when the start of my senior season. And actually, Coach told me I wasn't going to start. Tina Roy was a freshman at the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
And she was like, Tina is a great scorer. She's probably going to come in and start. And I was like, nah,
a freshman,
Coach. I'm a
senior.
Freshman, I'm a senior.
Right.
And
I just did point guard.
I was working. And so it ended up me. So it was the three Ishas. So myself, Aisha Walker, and Lakeisha Sutton. So we were the three guards that started. And then we had Lisa Welch and Ella Embium.
Nice.
So those were some of the people that started with us, and then we had Chardonnay Stevens and Courtney Newton.
Gotcha. All right,
Ashley Bruner as well was on that team.
I love Ash.
Yeah, Ashley Bruner was on that team.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to interrupt where we're at right now, but tell me about some of your experiences at point guard college, because that was some of the most fun times for me.
I felt like I didn't know basketball like I thought I did.
It's real. They sit you down in the classroom and with the whiteboard and everything.
And I was like, this is what I needed. It made me think about 2 and 3 passes ahead. So if you know what the plays are. And you know what's going to be open. And, Coach always says, move the ball and it's going to get to the right hands and that'll be the right shot. And so I was like, now it makes sense on what she was saying by moving the basketball. And so I felt like it just made me think about basketball differently, reading the defense and not reading the offense of what we're doing. We already know what we're going to do, but reading the defense. So those were the two things that I felt like I learned the most at point guard college.
Those were good times. And then the competition that they did at the end, that was so much fun. I did it, what was it? I think it was my junior or maybe sophomore year, but it was at Georgia Tech, and they did that big competition at the end where it's the one-on-one portion, and then I forget, you're in teams, but then you do one-on-one and then 2-on-2, and then at the end they do 3-on-3, and if you miss, you have to start over. So it's a big deal when you get to that final court, and they've got every player in the gym. There's hundreds of people, and they'll get every player in the gym to come around your court. And my team happened to be the final team, so it came down to us and this other group, and we had made it was a game to 3 or something like that, just not scoring a whole lot, but we came down, we had 2 points, and it came down to that last shot, and I got it at the top of the key, and I shot it and I made it. And everyone, it was so much fun. A great feeling. Oh my gosh!
I know because that was the best feeling ever.
You are in such close proximity with these people. You befriend them very quickly, and for the most part, it's very like-minded individuals. People who are very driven to play basketball. But when I was there was only one college person. I didn't know that people who are already in college sports did it a whole lot.
Right. Yeah. It was a lot of like high schoolers when I went, but it was cool.
You still gonna learn a lot.
You still gonna learn
you
a lot,
learn so much.
So
they're great.
I was fine.
Yeah. So transitioning back to your senior year, you guys had a pretty stacked roster. I mean, that was a good team.
We did.
Tell me about your experience that season.
So we weren't picked to finish high in the SEC. We weren't picked to do well, in non-conference. But I think the game that everybody was put on notice is that we played UNC in Myrtle Beach. I'm not sure if you remember, there used to be like a Battle of the Carolinas. So, and it was played in Myrtle Beach. The year before, they beat us by 30, right? And then my senior year, we beat them by 30.
That's awesome.
How
the tables turn.
Yeah, how the tables turn.
So fast.
So fast.
That is crazy.
It was like essentially the same team. We just added a few freshmen.
Right.
And so we beat them by 30. We ended up, everybody was talking about it like, South Carolina's defense might be for real.
Nasty.
Like,
might be.
That's how they was talking. Like,
like
South
what do you mean? Like, come play us.
Yeah. It was some controversial comments made. I won't talk about that, but and so that kind of fueled us too, because it's like, no, we just trying to play basketball. We're just trying to, win. That's all. Like, we're not trying to, do too much. And so then we get into conference play and we beat Tennessee at Tennessee.
Nice.
This is, Pat Summitt's last year coaching. Steve Spurrier at the time was the football coach, so he was at the game. We had everybody that was like somebody at South Carolina was at this game, right? And also Coach Staley's head coach, Debbie Ryan from Virginia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Came
she was
and
there.
Spoke to us before the game and was just like, I've been watching y'all all season. I've been watching your defense, and I really think y'all got a chance to beat Tennessee. At the time, Tennessee was ranked number 8. We weren't ranked. And so we went into Thompson Bowling Arena and beat them. I hit 7 threes.
Sheesh. Oh, my God. How made you end up with that game?
27.
Good. Great. All in threes? Or damn near?
So I had a few, jump shots. But
dang near all in
threes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I bet
that was a fun game.
It was one of those games where, you walked on the floor and you knew, okay, it's going to be one of those days. And so to open up the game, I hit a bank shot 3. And I remember just telling the team, let's go.
Over. It's over.
It's about to be one of them games. And so we ended up beating Tennessee. And then we got to the postseason, the SEC tournament. We got to the second quarterfinals. We played Georgia. We ran out of gas because we had to play 3 games back to back.
Right. Oh, that's no joke. I don't know. I mean, we're spoiled now. The team we jumped to the quarterfinals. But playing. Just think about when Kentucky beat us.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I hate it that happened.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's congratulate y'all did that. Really.
Yeah. So we had to play back to back, and we ended up playing Tennessee again, and we ran out of gas.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, it happens.
But then you made it to the NCAA tournament. For the first time.
First time for Coach Staley's career at South Carolina.
That's awesome.
And so we played Eastern Michigan in the first round. And I recall, they had the best scorer in NCAA basketball. And we were the best defensive team at the time.
It's a great matchup.
Defending the 3. And so commentators back then were saying, South Carolina's not going to be able to defend her. And, it was still the same stuff.
We like that, though.
Yeah,
please
we
doubt
were
us.
fueled by that. Yeah. And I just remember, getting on Twitter, at the time, and I added one of the journalists, and I'm like, please make sure you pay attention and tune in.
That's savage.
So we ended up shutting her down. I think she scored all of her points at the free throw line. Because, we fouled her, but you weren't going to shoot. You weren't going to make any threes on us.
Right.
So we ended up beating Eastern Michigan, and then we played Purdue. So at that time, it was still home court advantage. We traveled to Purdue, so we played at Purdue.
Okay.
We were the 5th seed, and they were the 4th seed. And then it was, when I tell you it was hot, they had no AC in the building. Like, it was the most, it was like one of those things like trying to slay Goliath. Like, it was hot. Nobody
like,
believed that you could beat Purdue. All the fans were there for Purdue.
I mean, the odds are just all stacked. Everything is stacked against you.
Everything was stacked against us. But we were conditioned well.
Disciplined.
We were disciplined. We were hydrated. We brought our defense, and we were just ready for the moment. We ended up beating Purdue at Purdue, and then taking Coach Staley to her first Sweet 16.
So cool.
So it was, and of course she plays her former coach, which was Tara Vanderveer.
Really?
We played
Y'all played Stanford
at the next round.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we played Stanford the next round. And so we ended up losing at Stanford. They had NECA and Chanae on the team. It was.
But you made it. You made it to the Sweet 16
We made
so
it to
fast. I mean, from the WNIT to the Sweet 16 the next season. Like that's freaking awesome.
And then the first 25 win season. Ever since
great.
then, we haven't lost.
I know.
We haven't.
You guys were that team that got us in the direction of that success to come.
So
another thing about your college career, you were gifted the nickname Granny. Tell me about how Granny came to fruition.
So it's interesting because Coach Staley and Nikki McCray, were the ones who
really
told me that that was going to be my nickname. It was kind of like they called me that, and I was just like, okay. Cool. Like, and it didn't even have anything to do with my last name. It was just like, you got like an old soul, and I feel like, everybody can relate to you, and you can, get us together in moments that we may need. And so ever since then, like, that's what they called me, and she still calls me. They still call you,
of course.
If she called me by my first name, I'm just like,
are
you okay?
Yeah, like, are we cool?
Yeah,
right. That's awesome.
Yeah, so,
that's cool.
That's how I got the name.
I got
Granny.
you. I like it. I think that's a good one. And then transitioning to post grad, you played a couple years in Germany, I believe. What was that experience like for you playing overseas? Because you kind of knew that professional basketball was just going to be something that you tried. It wasn't going to be like what you pursue. You felt like you were meant for more. So tell me about your experience playing overseas basketball for those 2 years.
So had a great senior season. Actually, I was in the WBA mock drafts, combine conversations. Myself and Lakeisha Sutton didn't necessarily get an opportunity to go to any of the training camps. So I ended up talking to Mike Cowan, who's an agent. He's still an agent to this day. And so he was like, there's an opportunity to go to Germany. So I went to Germany. I played in a little small city called Herne, Germany. It was interesting. Interesting.
European life is vastly different.
It was an interesting experience. I felt like the coach didn't really like me, so I was just
That's
like,
tough.
I don't want to play for someone that I feel like don't like me. So I ended up leaving and coming back, and then I went back over and I went back to Germany, but in another team that was in the same conference is the team that I left.
Okay.
And my former teammate ended up being on that team as well.
What teammate was that?
Valerie Naima.
Okay.
She's older.
Gotcha.
Way older.
But that's so comforting being on a team with someone who you're familiar with like that. That's gotta feel good. Did you guys have more success?
We did.
Okay.
It
was a better experience for you.
Better experience.
Okay.
So we ended up making to the Final Four, and we played the former team that I left. I didn't miss a shot.
Of course, naturally. Are you kidding me? Like, this is get back.
I had a perfect game. It was crazy. Like,
not a shot. You didn't miss a single shot.
I didn't miss a single shot.
Do you remember how many you had that game?
I think it was like 20.
Jeez.
Yeah, but it was like one of those revenge games.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, this is what you're missing.
For sure.
But yeah, the experience was great. I felt like, that never was my aspirations to play pro, but I was like, okay, I'm good enough. I'll go experience it. And then when I left Germany, I was supposed to go to Israel, and I just recall thinking like, maybe I want to transition back to being in the States. I'm not sure if I want to play outside of the country, and so I remember calling coach and saying like, hey, do you have a grad assistantship open. Like, I would love to come back and get my master's. And so at the time, she had somebody. So I remember going and being a graduate assistant at Troy University for 6 months.
Okay.
And then I ended up leaving there and coming to South Carolina.
Gotcha.
So I just transferred over to South Carolina. Ended up being a graduate assistant for 2 years with Asia Wilson, Tiffany Mitchell.
You were on the 2017 staff.
I was on the 2017 staff.
That's awesome.
So I was a part of the first national championship. And it was kind of one of those surreal moments, like full circle, right?
Definitely.
So the reason I came to South Carolina is because I wanted to be the foundation to help South Carolina win their first national championship. And then I ended up being on the staff to win the first national championship.
Yeah, that's definitely full circle.
Yeah.
What was it like, stepping into that new leadership position? I mean, it can be tough. It leaves a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. At the same time, being a part of a team, like, you're not actively on the team that won the national championship, but you're a part of that team. So what is it like stepping into that new leadership role of being like in a coach position for these players? Like, what was that like for you?
Honestly, I'm such a selfless person. So I go back to, like, again, I knew our team wasn't going to be the ones to win that national championship. So I think it speaks to the sacrifice that we made in order for this moment to happen. So it was like these players grew up watching us, and so now they're having a moment where they're experiencing what we built. Right, it's amazing. Which is amazing. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that experience, and then just being in that role of, like, being on the staff, like, it showed me, like, hey, I see what it looks like from a coach's perspective, and it made me think the game on another layer. Like, as a player, you're thinking it one way, but as a coach, you're thinking it 2 and 3 levels ahead. So it just made me think the game a little better, but also, like, be grateful for the opportunity of being able to be on staff.
For sure. Yeah. Did that experience make you want to just go into the coaching pipeline, or were you kind of on limbo about that, kind of thinking about taking your career in another direction?
Yeah, it showed me that I didn't want to go the path of being, like, I guess, a conventional coach, is right. What I would say. I knew that there was something else other than just being, what coach is and what the staff is. And so that kind of introduced me to, like, career development and leadership and those type of things. And so I think that's how that led me to where I am today. It's just like that experience taught me, like, hey, you can impact basketball and you can impact the game on another level and in another way, but still be a part of it. For sure. So I think that's what the experience taught me. Yeah.
So what was your first, like, starting off experiences with career development coaching once you left being a GA?
I went to a middle school down in Swansea, South Carolina.
Really?
It's a little Swansea. Okay. Yeah,
I'm like right down. I'm like just a stone away from Swansea.
A little Swansea, South Carolina. I was on an interview panel for a coaching search. Okay. And it was the superintendent at the time asked me to come back and do an interview for a career development position. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, that wasn't in my plans, but life doesn't go as you plan.
Not at all.
You always have experiences that's going to lead you to where you need to be. Yep. And that's I think that
you just got to feel the pulls.
You got to feel the pulls. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I did 2 years at Swansea as a career development facilitator. And then I was like, so I know there's more that I have to be doing.
I mean, life will make you uncomfortable when you're not where you're supposed to be.
Yes, and it was like the day I was supposed to turn in, like, the contract to come back, I was like, I can't in my right mind say that I'm going to do this another year. So, and it was nothing against, like, the school or the kids. I love the kids. I love the staff that I work with. I love Swansea, even though it's a small town. Like, right. I loved it. I was like, there's more. So I ended up finding a program called Life Sports. Okay. And that was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so it was life skills. It was an after-school program for inner-city kids. So it was life skills, tutoring, reading, and basketball. So
Gotcha.
with that, these kids had never played organized basketball. So I was going to be their first coach.
You're going to be their coach and their life coach.
And their life coach.
Everything in one.
Everything in one. Everything that I ever wanted was in one.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's great that you got that so early in your career too. Like that is truly very special.
It was very special. I started the first girls program for the after school program because it was only for they only did like boys basketball and soccer. So there was no girls programs with this.
You're a pioneer. So you were a pioneer with
every stage of my career.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Every stage of my career. And so with that, we built community. Like I got the parents involved. I got the school administrators involved. Like, you know how coach does. She doesn't leave anybody out. And it down to the janitor, right?
No,
of course down to the facility workers.
Everybody matters.
Everybody matters. And so I was real intentional about building community. And so for a year, we did that, and then we played in a YMCA league, right? And I was just dreading it. I'm like, yo, these girls have never played organized basketball,
right.
And I was like, I don't know if they're ready. I don't know if they're ready. And I just remember somebody telling me like they've been with you for a year,
right?
So I know you prepared them to play competitively. We get in the we get in the league and we go undefeated.
Wow.
We go undefeated and win the championship.
First year.
Did
not see that coming at all.
Did not see that coming.
What was that like your first game when you watched them go out there and like do really well? You're just like, huh?
It's like, you know how you don't really want to let them know, like,
yes, so you're trying to play
good.
it cool, but on the inside you're like,
yes, like we got so much to work on, like we still.
That's probably what Coach Staley was thinking last year. Would they be Notre Dame? She's like,
yes,
what?
And we could talk about that too.
Yeah, we could talk about that for sure.
Because I called her after we got back from Paris and I told her something. But we could talk about that.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was just like, yo, like these kids are really good. Like, but I was like, we got so much to work on. We got practice.
You got to keep them humble.
We got to box out.
Right, yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, coach, we got you. And so like.
They bought in.
They were bought in. They just felt community. They just felt like they were a part of something. And it goes back to me saying like I wanted to be a part of something bigger myself. And I felt like they felt that was that for them.
That's amazing.
And so we did that. Then COVID happened.
That just rocks you, man.
Oh, it rocked me to my core.
That's devastating.
Sure. It was.
So then, like, did you guys? Well, obviously the basketball portion of it was canceled. But were you able to like communicate with them via Zoom or like?
Yeah.
But that's not the same.
It wasn't the same. I was so opposed to it.
Yeah.
I was so opposed to it.
It's not real. Like, I mean, you're talking to them, but it's not real.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we met at school. We read. We did tutoring. They told me about their day. Like, you know, I was just more personal.
Right.
Just do it that way. So yeah, we still had Zoom. I was in Florida at the time, so I left Charlotte and went to Florida because all my family was in Florida. And so we just did Zoom for 2 months, and then one day they called for a meeting.
You know what that means.
And HR was on the meeting,
you
right?
Know
so
what that
I was
means.
like, oh, it's the end. Like we're done. So I just remember like
they cut your whole program.
Yeah, they cut the whole nonprofit though. It wasn't just my girls program.
They cut life sports?
They cut life sports.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
So,
then what? Yeah, so HR tells us, like, hey, we're going to suspend the program indefinitely. They offered me a position in the company because they valued, you know, me as a person, but also, like, the way that I led the program. And I had to sit on it for a couple of days because I'm just like, I'm not sure that's for me. Like, I think I'm made for more, right?
Yep.
And so I just remember, like, crying, like,
of course,
you know, just like, oh, it's over. And so my mom was like, girl, you've been talking about starting a business, like, start the business.
Here you
right?
go.
And I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah, right. I don't know anything about starting a business.
Nobody teaches us how to start a business.
Right.
And so I just remember like waking up out of my sleep one night and the name Savvy Skills came to me. and it's so interesting because like Savvy 5 has been like my social media
forever,
and I still haven't changed it, and I don't know if I'll ever change it. Like it's just been an identity.
That's who you are.
That's just who I am. Yeah. And so I just remember like Savvy Skills. I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. I left Florida the next day.
Wait, okay. So how soon after you got that call from HR, got the idea, and then left Florida? How, like, what's the time frame of that?
So we probably got the Zoom call on like May 1st or 2nd. I left Florida probably like the 3rd.
Oh my God.
And came back to South Carolina.
Right.
Was by myself for a week. I ended up starting the LLC on May 12th, 2020.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that. I built a business plan. I created a website. I made sure that all of the articles of incorporation was right. Like I made sure everything was in line.
You were ready. It was in you. It was time.
It was ready. I was ready.
I mean, it felt like such a setback, but at the same time, that was your opportunity to do what you needed to do. Exactly. Do what was next.
Exactly. And so after that, that summer of 2020, it was booming because everybody was still playing basketball. So I ended up going on a circuit and just telling people like, hey, I'm transitioning and starting my own, business. And it'll be personal development. It'll be team building. It'll be life skills in basketball. And so I did my first event like December of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course we were, COVID conscious. We were making sure everything was, in place. And so the first event was in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Okay, that's dope.
So that was a cool event. And then I was like, there's more to do.
Yes, absolutely. There's always more to do.
It can't just be life skills in basketball. So it transitioned to like, again, personal development, team building, nonprofit consulting. I do soft skills with nonprofits, especially ones that, have like young kids and from inner cities, because sometimes they don't have the resources to do those things. So I make sure I'm very intentional about working with those type of communities.
That's amazing. Yeah. Where do you see this going? What are your goals?
So the end goal is to have a leadership academy.
That's awesome.
And I'm saying that now, and that's been like, since the beginning. Like I always wanted a leadership academy, but it might be more than just a leadership academy. It might be international. It might be, it might be so many things. But for right now, I think, I'm just enjoying the ride. And I will tell you this as an entrepreneur, like, you have a plan or you have a goal that you think your business is or what it's going to be, it's going to come in waves of what it is, right? So I can tell you it's team building and it's all these things, but this past season I did motivational quotes for the WNBA Fever.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I did motivational quotes for South Carolina, like, in the tournament, like, on that little run. Like, it's just certain things, like, I could say I do, but I do so many things.
So many things. Yeah. You just got to be adaptable and prepare for anything.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. It sounds like a great journey. So is it just you right now? Or is it,
so it's just me, but I partner with a lot of other entrepreneurs that do like mental health. I have a segment a service that I offer is team building and painting. So I have someone who's a paint instructor that comes with me and go to team building with me. So it's not like I'm doing it by myself. I make sure I partner with people who are, doing the same things or, that align. I
think a great thing about what you're doing is, especially just you specifically, is your ability to, you go into these team environments, but you're singling people out and you're catering their needs. You're catering to their needs specifically. You're thinking from the team perspective, but at the end of the day, it's going to be specific their lives. To that team. Exactly. Yeah. And the individuals on that team, everyone's going a different direction. Yeah. So your ability to do that is incredible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we could talk a little bit about like what we said about Notre Dame last year.
Yes, let's please.
So yeah, like first of all, I did team building with South Carolina last year, and I remember the first meeting. I was like, yeah, this is not.
When did you go? When did you meet with them?
So it was like maybe like August or September.
Okay, so you
year.
saw the young.
The young.
Yeah.
Before we even got to.
Right, before we even stepped on the court. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember saying to myself, I was like, we got a problem, right? And I remember telling Coach this, like, I said, Coach, we got a problem. She's like, a problem? I was like, a good problem.
Oh.
I said, we got a good problem. I said, normally, if I go into a team building session, there's a culture or chemistry problem. Mm-hmm. We have neither. We had neither, right? And we definitely didn't have character issues.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she recruits
we
people with good character.
Yeah.
And so she was like, okay, well, do what you have to do. So I just had to revamp my approach with them. And it was more so like doing activities to continue to create that chemistry and that culture. I mean, our culture is always going to be what it is, but I was just like, yeah, this team might be the one.
Like you can skip the icebreakers with this team. Like let's get straight into it.
We get straight into it. We did do a little icebreaker, but then I was just like, they answered the questions like really thoroughly. So I was like, yeah, I gotta shift a little bit.
Yeah.
So we did fun activities. Went to the fair. We did scavenger hunts. We painted. All of the things that they didn't get to necessarily do is like high school athletes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because basketball was essentially always their focus.
It was very serious.
It was very serious.
Yeah.
So they just wanted to do fun things.
Yes.
Right? So we did
awakening
a lot
that
of,
inner child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we just did a lot of things that just nurtured that inner child in them. And so fast forward to Paris, right? And I just remember like feeling, this is going to be amazing. Like this feeling about Paris, it just felt good.
I feel like you were the only person feeling good. I feel like everyone
Everybody
else is like, oh God.
I guess because I had just worked with them. Like,
right,
you know,
right. You knew something everyone else didn't.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, this feels different. So when they beat Notre Dame the way they beat Notre Dame, I didn't say anything to Coach. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just recall, like, I'm going to call her when we get back from Paris. So I called her. I was like, Coach, this is probably your best team you've ever had.
Ever. And
she was like, what? She was like, you think so? I was like, I absolutely believe so. I said, I know, like, you know, from your lens, you're like, we need to work on this, we need to work on that. I'm saying, but at every position, there's a powerhouse at every position. And we've never had that capability on our team. And so I was like, I don't see us losing. That's what I recall saying to her. Yeah, and she was like, okay. She was like, but, you know, I still gotta, you know how she is.
Yes.
And so and I think I saw it in the Rutgers game. You know, remember they played Rutgers, and I was like, dang, they kind of good. But Notre Dame solidified that.
For sure.
And I was just like,
I was shocked. I mean, I can't even lie.
Yes.
Watching that, me and my mom like went to some bar together. We're just watching this game. Like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like, they are killing them, and they look so good, and so comfortable.
Yes.
But you saw that from the get-go.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And you know, like, it starts with that comfort level off the court. And it's not like you have to be best friends. It's not like you have to get along all the time. But the common goal has to be a consensus among the team. Yeah. That trust, like, you know, and that loyalty. I know you my sister, you know, and I know I'm going to go to war for you. Like,
absolutely.
It's that. And I felt like even though, like, they were young, and even though Pow had never, you know, even played with them on the AAU circuit or anything, like, she just fit perfectly. And
they're just master recruiters.
Yes,
like, it's incredible. They get exactly who they're supposed to get.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I just feel like it just felt good last year. And so going into this season, I think they're better than last year.
Scary.
It's scary.
Y'all better watch out.
Yes, I think they're better than last year.
Me too. I can't lie. They look great.
Yeah.
And I mean, the chemistry, like you said, is just off the charts. And that's everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And they have incredible talent. So it's going to be a fun year. I'm
Yes.
looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah. You going to try to go back and work with them again?
So yeah, I mean, Coach hasn't called me yet, but I'm sure she's probably going to need it at some point.
I feel like you'll be back.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if she calls, I'm coming.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
You've had a really amazing career.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited for your book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to get into?
You know, I just was telling some friends, like, I want to change the scenery, because I think a part of me has outgrown the state of South Carolina, but then there's a part of me like, no, you're doing good stuff here, but I kind of want to branch out a little bit, try other states.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
But for right now, like, just gonna continue to.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Do the team building and personal development here.
That's awesome.
So,
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being on. This was a really good time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you a lot. And that wraps up episode 4 of The Coop. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That was
Thank
good.
you. That was awesome.
good.